The Supreme Court ruling that allowed employee-led prayer into public schools has become even more absurd. So the reason that I say that is when you actually learn about what has happened since that ruling has come down, specifically the person who actually started this, Coach Joe Kennedy, again, the details get pretty bad. So now last year, the Supreme Court ruled in favor of this high school football coach and his right to, what he said, engage in brief, quiet, personal prayer during games. So now look, I don't have a problem with brief, quiet, personal prayers in public. Of course, nobody has a problem with that. The thing is that we find out that it wasn't exactly brief, quiet, personal prayers. Now, at the time, Kennedy was reprimanded by the school in Washington for his private religious expression and decided to sue the district, claiming that you violated my right to freedom of religion. Again, if you looked into the case, you would find out that his prayers were anything but private religious practice. He was establishing huge prayer circles in the middle of the field. In fact, here's an example of that in this image. There he is. He's basically in the middle, holding up the helmet. There's an arrow pointing to him, giant prayer circle, and apparently it was quite loud. Non-Christian players during this case came forward to say that they had felt coerced into joining in these prayer circles because they, I think, correctly assumed that their coach would show favoritism towards those who would participate and perhaps even retaliate against those who did not participate. That's why it's a problem. It is a problem of exclusion, right? If you do something that is going to be exclusive as a coach in order to coerce people into doing something that they may not be comfortable with when it comes to religion, that violates their religious freedom. Simple as that. That said, the extremely conservative Supreme Court did not see it that way, and they ignored a lot of the facts in order to basically make a decision that conservatives were hoping for. At the end of the day, the taxpayers ended up paying the settlement, and the school was forced to offer him his job back. Turns out that that's actually not what he wanted in reality. So as noted by Slate magazine, during the time that the case was being litigated, Kennedy actually sold his house and moved to Florida. Now, Bremerton, which is the school district that he was in, is in Washington State, as I mentioned. Now, when the school district's lawyers discovered that he had packed up and moved, taken his wife, and went to Florida, they advised the Supreme Court the case had become moot, arguing that Kennedy clearly didn't want his job back. His lawyers fired back at that, saying, no, it's his temporary living in Florida. That's right, it's just temporary. Oh, really? You moved across the country temporarily. Oh, no, he wants to come back, you see. As soon as this is resolved, he'll come back within a day. In fact, here is a statement. I'm ready and willing to resume my coaching duties in Bremerton, Washington. I can do so within 24 hours of reinstatement if I am still temporarily residing in Florida. Now, is that what happened? No. In fact, when the court ordered the school district to rehire him, the Seattle Times' Danny Westneat reported that they didn't even get a response. Not initially. So why is that? Well, it turns out Kennedy was a little busy, doing the whole right-wing grift circuit, meeting with Vice President Mike Pence, getting an engraved rifle from the American Legion, meeting with Governor Ron DeSantis, and even former President Donald Trump. A little busy, making those rounds, getting them grifter bucks. What happened to being ready within 24 hours? Now, he did eventually make his way back to Bremerton, not within 24 hours, but more like 12 months. Seriously, just last Friday, Kennedy returned to Bremerton to coach a single football game, and then he quit. What happened? What happened? I thought the whole purpose of this was, I'm going to fight for my religious beliefs so that I can come back and do what I love. Coach football. No, no. Why is he not back to coaching then? If that was his goal, he got his win, he got his way. What gives? Oh, because it was never about Joe Kennedy's personal religious beliefs. No, this was about allowing himself to be used as a vehicle to expand religious indoctrination in schools. That's it. That's the goal here. He didn't move back to Washington. He decided to become a permanent resident of Florida now and is a conservative folk hero because he opened the way for the far right to shred the First Amendment, to get rid of the Establishment Clause by chipping away at it and pushing religion into the public square that will be backed and paid for by our tax dollars. As I mentioned, chipping away. Well, this is one thing. The other, another case was the 303 Creative v. Alenis case. Both of these cases, it should be noted, were based on flimsy arguments and misrepresentations that the court obviously didn't care about. Now, in that case, a website designer named Lori Smith said Colorado's non-discrimination law was forcing her to make a wedding website for a same-sex couple. Except that when you look into the details of that, she was not actually ever making wedding websites. That's not what she did. And she was never even asked. And the people that she claimed were even interested didn't really exist. She claimed that she was approached by a gay couple, Stuart and Mike, that were maybe interested in possibly having her do some website design for them, for their wedding. But it turns out that, again, they were not real. And there was actually no possibility that she was going to even break that law, to run afoul of it. But it doesn't matter because it was essentially a test case. Now, one thing that these cases also have in common is who took them up. Conservative lawyers, groups, special interest groups like the Alliance Defending Freedom, which not actually defending freedom of religion, if you've noticed. Look, these situations were basically made up and capitalized on by these groups in order to get this in front of the very conservative Supreme Court. They are pushing lawsuit after lawsuit in an effort to destroy the separation of church and state. The aftermath of this case is prime example of how they're doing this. And unfortunately, since we do have a 6-3 conservative Supreme Court, these cases are winning. Our freedom from religion and freedom to not have to pay for someone else's religion is getting stripped away, piece by piece, case by case. These are the latest couple of examples, but I promise you, there will be more until at the end of the day, we no longer have a separation of church and state. And when that happens, then you can say we've really lost our country.